First contact and sacrifice. The emergency beacon pulsed through the void, its crimson light piercing the darkness between the stars. Captain Jasmine Rhodes stood at the helm of the stellar horizon, her weathered hands steady on the controls as she guided her ship toward the distress signal. After 15 years of deep space salvage operations, she'd learned that distress calls usually meant either profit or trouble. Sometimes both. Signal analysis complete, Captain, her ship's AI, Perseus, announced. The vessel appears to be of Lemurian design. Life support systems critical. One life sign detected, rapidly fading. Jasmine's dark eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic display. The Lemurians were a secretive species, rarely encountered this far from their home systems. Their ships, elegant vessels of crystalline alloys, were prized by collectors and pirates alike. Any signs of pursuit or combat damage, she asked, already plotting an intercept course. Negative. However, the ship's quantum signature indicates unusual fluctuations. Caution is advised. The Lemurian vessel came into view, a sleek silvery craft no larger than a shuttle, its hull adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. But something was wrong. The usual ethereal glow of their quantum drives was dimmed, and hairline fractures spiderwebbed across the ship's surface. Jasmine initiated docking procedures, her mind already calculating risks and possibilities. Perseus, prep the med bay. And run a full containment protocol, I don't want any surprises. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss as Jasmine stepped aboard the alien vessel, her environment suit sensors scanning for hazards. The interior was bathed in a soft blue emergency light, and the air was thick with the sweet, metallic scent characteristic of Lemurian atmospheres. She found the ship's sole occupant in the pilot's chamber. The Lemurian was female, her translucent skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed weakly like a failing heartbeat. Her features were ethereally beautiful even by her species standards, with high cheekbones and sweeping brows that curved gracefully into delicate antennae. Can you understand me? Jasmine asked, activating her suit's universal translator. The Lemurian's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that swirled with galaxies of silver and violet. I am Nixis, she managed, her voice barely a whisper. Please, the data crystal. It must not fall into their hands. Jasmine noticed the crystal clutched in Nixis's hand, its surface carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Who's after you? But Nixis's eyes were closing, her life signs growing weaker. Jasmine cursed under her breath and activated her calm, Perseus, emergency transport to Med Bay. And run a full biological scan, I need to know if she's compatible with human blood types. The AI's response was immediate. Captain, I must advise against attempted transfusion. Lemurian biology is highly complex and poorly understood. The risk of rejection is. Just run the damn scan, Jasmine snapped, already removing her suit's gauntlet. She'd seen that fading light before, in the eyes of too many who hadn't made it. Not this time. The med bay's automated systems worked swiftly as Perseus analyzed both their blood samples. Jasmine paced, watching as Nixis's vital signs continued to drop. The Lemurian's bioluminescent patterns were barely visible now, like stars fading at dawn. Analysis complete, Perseus announced. There is a 43% chance of compatibility, but Captain, the potential risks. Begin transfusion, Jasmine ordered, settling into the medical chair beside Nixis. As her blood began flowing through the transfer system, she studied the mysterious data crystal now secured in a containment field. Whatever secrets it held had nearly cost Nixis her life. The effect of the transfusion was immediate and startling. Nixis's bioluminescent patterns flared brilliantly, and her back arched as if struck by lightning. Her eyes snapped open, and for a moment, Jasmine could have sworn they glowed with the same warm brown as her own. Detecting unusual cellular activity, Perseus reported, a note of concern in its artificial voice. The patient's biology appears to be adapting to your blood at an unprecedented rate. Jasmine felt a strange tingling sensation where the transfer tube connected them, as if their blood was singing to itself. Nixis turned to her, wonder and confusion mingling in her otherworldly eyes. "What have you done?" the Lemurian whispered. "I can feel you, your essence, your memories." Before Jasmine could respond, proximity alarms blared throughout the ship. Perseus's voice was urgent. "Captain, 3 vessels just dropped out of quantum space. Configuration matches known Syndicate signatures." Jasmine's jaw tightened. The Syndicate, an organization of technological pirates and black market researchers, had been growing bolder in their operations, but attacking a human vessel was unprecedented. "They followed my quantum wake," Nixis said, struggling to sit up. "The crystal, the data it contains, they'll kill us both to obtain it." "Not if I can help it," Jasmine replied, disconnecting the transfusion line. She could feel the fatigue setting in from blood loss, but her mind was already racing through tactical options. "Perseus, power up the quantum drive. We're about to show these Syndicate bastards why you don't corner a salvage captain in her own territory." What she couldn't know, was that her simple act of mercy had set in motion changes that would reshape the future of both their species. The blood that flowed between them carried more than just life, it carried potential that neither human nor Lemurian science had ever dreamed possible. And in Nixis's transformed cells, that potential was already beginning to awaken. The awakening bond. The stellar horizon shuddered as another volley of Syndicate weapons fire grazed their shields. Jasmine's fingers danced across the helm controls, guiding her ship through a series of evasive maneuvers that would have torn a lesser vessel apart. Beside her, Nixis swayed in the co-pilot's seat, her luminescent patterns pulsing in sync with the ship's quantum drive. "Your ship," Nixis observed, her voice stronger now, "it's not just a salvage vessel, is it?" Jasmine allowed herself a small smile. "Let's just say I've made some modifications over the years." "Perseus, status on that quantum signature masking?" "Calculations complete," the AI responded. "However, the energy requirements will leave us vulnerable for approximately 3.2 seconds during the transition." "They'll be expecting us to run," Jasmine mused, studying the tactical display. "So let's do something stupid instead. Perseus, plot a microjump. I want us right between those 3 ships." Nixis's otherworldly eyes widened. "That's suicide. The gravitational shear alone." "Trust me," Jasmine interrupted, even as she felt a strange resonance through their newly formed blood bond. "I have a feeling you're not the only one who's undergone some changes." Indeed, since the transfusion, Jasmine had noticed her reflexes becoming sharper, her intuition almost precognitive. It was as if she could feel the space around them in ways her sensors couldn't explain. The quantum drive hummed to life, and for a fraction of a second, reality bent around them. When it snapped back, they were in the heart of the Syndicate formation. Before the enemy ships could react, Jasmine fired the Horizon's electromagnetic pulse cannons, another modification that definitely wasn't standard salvage equipment. "Direct hits," Perseus announced as the Syndicate vessels went dark. "Enemy systems temporarily disabled. However, Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from both yourself and our guest." Jasmine felt it too, a warmth spreading through her chest, accompanied by flashes of memories that weren't her own. Crystal spires reaching toward twin moons. The weight of responsibility passed down through generations of Lemurian scholars. The terror of discovery and desperate flight through quantum space. "The bond," Nixis whispered, her patterns shifting to match Jasmine's elevated heart rate. "It's evolving faster than any documented case of genetic resonance. Your blood, it's not just sustaining my life. It's creating something new." "New how?" Jasmine asked, setting course away from the disabled Syndicate ships. She could feel exhaustion creeping in, not just from the blood loss, but from something deeper, as if her very cells were working overtime. Nixis placed a hand on her abdomen, her expression a mix of wonder and uncertainty. Among my people, genetic resonance is a natural part of our evolution. We can adapt beneficial traits from other species through prolonged exposure. But this is different. Your blood carries something unique, a genetic flexibility we've never encountered before. Captain, Perseus interjected, medical scans are detecting rapid cellular changes in both of you. The quantum signature of your combined DNA is creating interference with our sensors. Jasmine frowned. Is it dangerous? Unknown, the AI admitted. However, I'm detecting similarities to Lemurian reproductive patterns. Reproductive? Jasmine's head snapped toward Nixus, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. My people don't reproduce in the way humans do, she explained. We require genetic catalysts, moments of profound biological compatibility that allow for the creation of new life. Traditionally, this process takes years of careful preparation and ceremonial bonding. And my blood has somehow initiated an accelerated version of the process. Nixus's patterns swirled with complex emotions. I'm carrying a child, Jasmine. One that will be neither fully human nor fully Lemurian, but something entirely new. The revelation hit Jasmine like a quantum wake. In all her years of deep space salvage, she'd never imagined becoming a parent, let alone to a hybrid child with an alien she'd just met. Yet somehow, it felt right, as if all her wandering had been leading to this moment. The Syndicate, she realized suddenly. They weren't just after your data crystal. They knew this was possible. Nixus nodded grimly. The crystal contains my research on cross-species genetic compatibility. I discovered patterns suggesting that human DNA might be the key to unlocking rapid adaptation in other species. The Syndicate wants to weaponize that potential, to create armies of hybrid soldiers loyal to their cause. Over my dead body, Jasmine growled, feeling a surge of protective instinct that was both foreign and familiar. That's precisely what they're counting on, Nixus said softly. But there might be another way. There's a hidden research facility in the Meridian Nebula, run by Scholar Verith. She's spent centuries studying the boundaries between species. If anyone can help us understand what's happening and protect our child, it's her. Jasmine checked their fuel reserves and plotted a course. The Meridian Nebula was notorious for its quantum storms and spatial anomalies, perfect cover for a secret facility, and a nightmare to navigate. Perseus, how long can we maintain quantum masking? At current power levels, approximately 72 hours. However, Captain, I feel compelled to point out that entering the Meridian Nebula with an unstable quantum signature is exceptionally dangerous. Jasmine reached for Nixus's hand, feeling that now familiar resonance surge between them. Sometimes the most dangerous path is the only way forward. Set course for the Meridian Nebula, full power to the quantum drive. As the stars blurred around them, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading towards something bigger than either of them had imagined. The child growing within Nixus wasn't just a miracle of biology, it was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what might be possible when barriers between species fell away. And if the Syndicate wanted to stop that future from coming to pass, they'd have to go through one very determined salvage captain first. Sanctuary's secret. The Meridian Nebula loomed before them like a wall of living fire, its quantum storms painting impossible colors across the void. Jasmine guided the stellar horizon through the chaos, relying more on instinct than instruments. Their sensors, already confused by the growing quantum resonance between her and Nixus, were nearly useless in the nebula's electromagnetic maelstrom. Your flying has changed, Nixus observed, her patterns rippling with fascination. You're navigating like a Lemurian pilot now, feeling the quantum currents rather than measuring them. Jasmine nodded, aware of how her perception had shifted since the transfusion. And you? How are you handling all these human instincts? They're intense. Nixus placed a hand over her abdomen, where their child continued to develop at an unprecedented rate. Your species feels everything so deeply, so immediately. It's both terrifying and exhilarating. Captain, Perseus interrupted, I'm detecting a coherent signal through the quantum noise. It appears to be some form of navigation beacon, but the encryption is unlike anything in my database. That's because it's not encrypted, Nixis said, her antenna quivering. It's alive. Scholar Veritha's facility uses bioquantum technology, living systems that respond to conscious intent. As if in response to her words, a massive structure began to materialize through the nebula's swirling gases. It resembled a giant crystalline flower, its petals arranged in impossible geometric patterns that seemed to fold through dimensions beyond normal space. Bioluminescent veins pulsed along its surface, creating patterns that matched Nixis's own. Beautiful, Jasmine breathed, feeling an answering resonance from both Nixis and their unborn child. And deadly to the uninvited, Nixis added. The facility's defenses are tied directly to Veritha's own consciousness. Without proper quantum harmonization, any approaching vessel would be torn apart at the molecular level. So how do we get in? Nixis smiled, her patterns shifting to match the facility's rhythm. We already are. The child we carry, it's creating a bridge. The facility recognizes us as something new, something it wants to understand. Sure enough, one of the crystalline petals was opening, revealing a docking bay that pulsed with welcoming light. Jasmine guided them in, noticing how the ship's systems seemed to sync naturally with the alien technology around them. They were met in the airlock by Scholar Verith herself. The ancient Lemurian made Nixis look almost human by comparison, her form was nearly translucent, with complex geometric patterns flowing through her body like visible thoughts. Her eyes, when they focused on the pair, held the depth of galaxies. Fascinating, Verith said, her voice resonating directly in their minds. In all my centuries of study, I never imagined seeing such perfect synthesis. Please, come. There is much to discuss, and time grows short. The scholar led them through corridors that seemed to breathe, the walls shifting and flowing around them like liquid crystal. Jasmine noticed that wherever she and Nixis walked together, the patterns in the floor became more complex, more harmonious. Your facility, Jasmine said, it's responding to us. Indeed. Verith gestured to the living walls. This place is a reflection of life itself, constantly adapting, evolving, seeking new forms of harmony. And you too. She turned, her form shimming with excitement. You represent something I've only theorized about. A true bridge between species, achieved not through force or engineering, but through pure altruism. They entered what appeared to be a research chamber, though unlike any laboratory Jasmine had ever seen. Instead of traditional equipment, the room was filled with crystalline growths that functioned as both computers and medical scanners. Living data flowed through them like blood through veins. The Syndicate has been trying to force cross-species adaptation for decades, Verith explained, guiding Nixis to an examination couch that grew up from the floor to meet her. They believe that by combining the strongest traits of different species, they can create the perfect weapons. But they fundamentally misunderstand the nature of life itself. How so? Jasmine asked, instinctively moving closer to Nixis as the crystal scanners began their work. True adaptation cannot be forced, Verith said simply. It must arise from genuine connection, from the willing exchange of essence. Your blood, freely given to save Nixis's life, carried not just genetic material but intention. Purpose. Love, though you didn't know it yet. The scanner's patterns suddenly flared, and a holographic image appeared above Nixis's abdomen. Within it, they could see their child, a perfect fusion of human and Lemurian traits, its tiny form already pulsing with both bioluminescent patterns and a strong, human heartbeat. The development is accelerating, Verith observed, her form rippling with concern. The combination of human adaptive potential and Lemurian evolutionary capabilities is creating something unprecedented. A being that could potentially bridge not just our species, but all sentient life. Is that dangerous? Jasmine asked, feeling protective instincts surge through her newly enhanced awareness. All great changes carry risk, Verith admitted. But the greater risk lies in allowing the Syndicate to pervert this natural miracle into a weapon of war. They will not stop hunting you. Even now, they're learning to track your unique quantum signature through the nebula. Nixis sat up, her patterns flaring with determination. Then we need to complete the bond before they find us. Scholar, you once wrote about the meridian protocols, the ancient rites of genetic harmonization. Veritha's form stilled, her patterns becoming almost crystalline in their intensity. Those rites were theoretical, based on fragments of knowledge from species long extinct. The power required, the risk to both participants, would be less than the risk of letting the Syndicate turn our child into a weapon, Jasmine finished, understanding flowing through her enhanced intuition. Whatever these rites entail, we're ready. The ancient scholar studied them both, seeing perhaps not just what they were, but what they could become. Very well, she said finally. But know this, if we proceed, there is no returning to what you were before. You will become something new, something that has never existed in this galaxy. Jasmine took Nixis's hand, feeling their resonance surge at the contact. In her mind, she could see possible futures branching out like quantum paths through the nebula. Some led to darkness, to war and suffering. But others led to light, to understanding, to a galaxy where the barriers between species fell away like ancient wounds finally healed. We're ready, they said together, their voices harmonizing in ways that made the very walls of the facility pulse in response. Verith nodded, and the chamber began to transform around them. Then let us begin the meridian protocols. May the universe forgive us if we fail, and may it be ready for us if we succeed. Evolution's dance. The chamber pulsed with living light as Scholar Verith initiated the meridian protocols. Crystalline formations grew around Jasmine and Nixis, creating a complex geometric pattern that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind was meant to perceive. The facility itself appeared to be holding its breath, waiting. The ritual requires perfect synchronization, Verith explained, her translucent form moving through the crystalline maze like smoke through glass. Your bodies, your minds, your quantum signatures, all must align at the precise moment of activation. Warning, Perseus announced through the facility's living communication network. Multiple Syndicate vessels detected entering the nebula. Their weapon signatures have been enhanced with quantum resonance technology. Jasmine felt Nixis's hand tighten in hers. Through their growing bond, she could sense her partner's fear, not for herself, but for their child and the future it represented. The emotion echoed through the living crystals around them, creating ripples of concerned light. They've adapted faster than anticipated, Verith observed grimly. The Syndicate must have decoded part of Nixis's research data. We must complete the protocols before they breach our defenses. The ancient scholar raised her arms, and the chamber's bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in complex rhythms. Each beat seemed to resonate with something deep in Jasmine's modified DNA, calling forth changes that had been merely hinted at before. Your blood carries an extraordinary adaptive potential, Verith explained as she worked. A flexibility in your genetic code that most species lost eons ago. Combined with Lemurian evolutionary capabilities, it creates a template for something entirely new. Nixis gasped as the ritual began in earnest. Her patterns flared with impossible colors as the chamber's energy focused through her. I can see it, she whispered. The paths of evolution, branching out like quantum threads through time. Jasmine felt it too, possibilities cascading through her consciousness like falling stars. She saw versions of humanity that had evolved along different paths, Lemurian civilizations that had chosen different adaptations, futures where the barriers between species were mere memories. The child you carry, Verith continued, her voice resonating with power, is not just a hybrid. It's a bridge, a living proof that evolution need not be a solitary journey. That species can grow stronger together than they ever could alone. The facility shuddered as the first Syndicate weapon's fire struck its outer defenses. The crystalline walls absorbed the impact, but ripples of distress spread through the living structure. Their weapons, Verith observed with concern, they're using corrupted versions of Lemurian bioquantum technology. The facility cannot hold them indefinitely. Then let's give them something else to worry about, Jasmine growled. She could feel new strength flowing through her, changes accelerated by the ritual's energy. Her consciousness expanded, touching the facility's defense systems through her connection to Nixus and the living crystal. With a thought, she redirected power through the quantum matrix, turning the nebula's natural storms into weapons. Lightning made of pure probability lashed out at the attacking ships, scattering their formation. Remarkable, Verith breathed. You're adapting to the facility's systems as if you were born to them. The integration is proceeding faster than I'd ever imagined possible. Nixus's patterns suddenly flared with blinding intensity. The child within her was responding to the ritual, its unique genetic makeup acting as a catalyst for changes in both its mothers. Where their hands joined, their flesh had begun to merge at a molecular level, neither human nor Lemurian but something gloriously in between. The final phase approaches, Verith announced. When the quantum resonance peaks, you must make a choice. The energy we've gathered can be used to either complete your transformation, making you into something new and unprecedented, or to shield this facility and your child from the Syndicate forever. Why not both? Jasmine asked, feeling Nixus's agreement pulse through their bond. The power required would tear apart the quantum fabric of this sector, Verith warned. Unless. Her form shimmered with sudden insight. Unless we use the Syndicate's own weapons against them. Their quantum resonance technology, corrupted as it is, could be reverse-engineered through your combined abilities. Another blast rocked the facility, closer this time. Through the living walls, they could see Syndicate boarding craft attempting to breach the outer layers. Whatever we're going to do, Jasmine said, we need to do it now. Nixus's patterns synchronized with the chamber's pulsing light. Together then, she said, her voice carrying echoes of both their species' histories. Let them see what evolution truly means. They reached out with their enhanced senses, touching the quantum fields that the Syndicate had twisted to their purpose. Through their bond, amplified by Verith's ancient knowledge and the living technology around them, they could feel the corrupted energy like a discord in reality's music. Instead of fighting it, they embraced it. Changed it. Made it part of their own transformation even as they redirected its destructive potential. The facility's crystals sang with power as the ritual reached its crescendo. Now. Verith commanded, her form blazing with concentrated evolution. Jasmine and Nixus surrendered to the change, letting it flow through them like a river of stars. Their separate forms dissolved into pure quantum potential, guided by the pattern of their unborn child, the perfect fusion of both their species' greatest strengths. The Syndicate ships, their weapons still firing, found their corrupted energy turning back on itself, transformed by the power of willing adaptation into something new and beautiful. Where there had been discord, now there was harmony. And in the heart of the ritual chamber, where two beings had stood, something unprecedented was taking shape, a glimpse of what the future could be, if only the universe was brave enough to embrace it. The question was, would that future be allowed to survive its birth? Legacy of Two Worlds. Light blazed through the Meridian Nebula like a newborn star. Where Jasmine and Nixus had stood, a being of pure quantum potential now floated, neither human nor Lemurian, but a perfect synthesis of both. Their shared consciousness expanded through the facility's living crystal, touching the minds of their attackers with understanding that transcended mere thought. The Syndicate forces felt it first, a resonance that called to something deep and ancient in their genetic memory. Through the quantum-enhanced weapons they wielded, the transformed couple reached out not with violence, but with the offer of connection. They need to see, Nixus's thoughts merged with Jasmine's in their shared form. To understand what they've been fighting against. What they could become. Through their enhanced perception, they broadcast images of possibility, futures where species grew together instead of fighting, where adaptation came through cooperation rather than force. They showed the Syndicate soldiers their own research, not as a weapon to be used, but as a door to be opened. Scholar Verith watched in awe as the attack faltered. Through the facility's sensors, she could see Syndicate crews laying down their weapons, their minds open to new possibilities by the raw power of willing evolution. Extraordinary, she breathed. You're not just showing them a new future, you're offering them a path to it. The transformed being that was Jasmine and Nixis pulsed with agreement. Their shared consciousness could feel their child growing stronger, its unique genetic pattern becoming a template for possibilities that neither species had imagined alone. But not everyone was ready to embrace change. On the lead Syndicate vessel, Admiral Koros watched his forces standing down with cold fury. His fingers flew over the quantum controls, overriding safety protocols and directing all power to weapons. If we cannot harness evolution, he snarled, then none shall have it. The blast that erupted from his ship carried enough corrupted quantum energy to tear a hole in spacetime itself. It screamed toward the facility like a spear of twisted probability, aimed at the heart of everything Jasmine and Nixis had become. But they were ready. In their merged form, they could see the quantum equations that made up reality itself. The facility's living crystal responded to their will, reshaping itself into new configurations that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. As the blast approached, they reached out not to deflect it, but to embrace it. To accept it. To change it, as they had been changed, through the power of willing transformation. The corrupted energy met their quantum field and, transformed. What had been destruction became creation. What had been entropy became evolution. The blast curved through impossible geometries and returned to its source, not as a weapon, but as an offer of transformation. Admiral Koros's ship blazed with new light as the energy he had tried to corrupt was purified by its journey through quantum space. The vessel's rigid military lines softened, became organic, as the power of natural adaptation flowed through its systems and crew. They're changing, Verith observed, watching through the facility's sensors as the Syndicate ships began to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. You've given them the gift of adaptation. In their shared form, Jasmine and Nixis felt their child's consciousness touch the minds of the transformed Syndicate crews. Where there had been fear and hatred of the unknown, now there was curiosity. Where there had been a drive to control evolution, now there was a desire to understand it. But they could not maintain this merged state forever. Already, the energy of their transformation was beginning to fade. Their consciousness, expanded beyond normal limits, began to contract. It's time, Verith said softly. You must choose, remain as you are, a single transformed being, or return to your separate selves, changed but distinct. Through their bond, Jasmine and Nixis shared centuries of memory in an instant. They saw the beauty of both unity and diversity, the strength that came from being both one and many. They felt their child's agreement, it would be a bridge between states of being, proof that separation need not mean division. With a flash of quantum light, their merged forms separated. Jasmine and Nixis stood hand in hand, their bodies forever changed by their experience. Jasmine's skin now held traces of bioluminescent patterns, while Nixis's form had gained some of humanity's adaptable strength. Look, Verith gestured to the facility's walls, where new patterns were forming. The living crystal had adapted to their transformation, creating structures that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states. You've changed more than yourselves. You've changed what's possible. Through the facility's windows, they could see the transformed Syndicate ships beginning to dock. Their crews would need guidance, understanding, help in adapting to their new state of being. But that was precisely what this place, this sanctuary, had evolved to provide. And our child? Nixis asked, her hand resting on her abdomen where new patterns swirled. Will be the first of many bridges, Verith replied. Not just between human and Lemurian, but between all species ready to embrace willing change. The universe is vast, and evolution has many paths. You've proven they need not be walked alone. Jasmine pulled Nixis close, feeling the quantum resonance that still flowed between them. Their child's consciousness brushed their minds with images of possibility, futures where the barriers between species fell away not through force, but through understanding. Where adaptation came not from war, but from love. So, Jasmine said with a smile that held echoes of starlight, "What's our next adventure?" Nixus's patterns swirled with joy and mischief. "The real question is, what isn't?" Above them, the Meridian Nebula continued its eternal dance of creation and change. But now its quantum storms carried seeds of new possibility, born from the union of two beings who had chosen to evolve together rather than struggle alone. And in the vastness of space, other species felt the echoes of their transformation, a reminder that the greatest journeys begin with a simple choice to reach out, to connect, to grow not in isolation but in harmony with all that lives. Their story had changed the galaxy. But in many ways, it was only beginning.